Hello, and welcome to Tales Unlimited. I am Marcus V. Calvert, compulsive storyteller. Today, I shall be reading a short story from the Book of Schemes. What is the Book of Schemes? Think of it as an anthology of 25 short stories that are darker than the traditional Twilight Zone fare, with a pinch of humor thrown in. The story today is called A Break in the Monotony. I won't ruin it for you, but it would have made an interesting series on, say, Netflix or something. Let's just say it's an interesting take on corporate America. Here's the story. Enjoy. Harry Tharton typed with the skilled boredom of a seasoned clerk. Alone in his red-hued cubicle, Harry paused to stretch as he reviewed the freshly completed memo. A glance down alerted him to a brand-new coffee stain on his bright yellow shirt just above his bulging gut. Harry scratched his balding brown scalp, muttered a mild profanity, and wondered if the cleaners could get the stain out. Over the years, he had brought them many a challenge, from pasta sauce to blue ink to vomit from a cute newborn that one of the moms showed off last Valentine's Day. Harry found it odd that he hadn't felt hot coffee splash on him and reached for his oversized mug. One sip of the tepid brew was enough to make him set it back on his desk with a prune-faced expression. While he didn't mind his dead-end job, Harry did mind the shoe-flavored Java, even if it was free. As he did 6 minutes ago, Harry eyed his watch and realized that lunch was too many minutes away for comfort. Then he went back to work. In short order, the memo was double-checked and emailed. His phone rang. "Client services," Harry began with well-rehearsed politeness. "Harry speaking. How may I help you?" "Could you come to my office for a minute?" Bill Galliano's gravelly voice asked. "Sure," Harry replied as he reached for a black pen and yellow legal pad. "On the way." Ben hung up. As Harry hung up, stood up, and headed for his boss's office, the fantasy of being fired floated through his mind. Short of the company going bankrupt, he figured getting downsized was the only chance there was of him looking for a better job. Then the logical part of his brain cut in and told him to be grateful for his tiny little niche in the Meyerkoff-Lamb corporate tree. Were he to be fired, odds were that he'd end up working 3 times harder just to make what he was making now. After all, everyone around him had advanced degrees and years of experience, allowing them to earn a lot more cash. A 31-year-old loser, Harry recently moved out of his parents' basement. Sadly, it wasn't his choice. Tired of Buffalo winters, Harry's folks sold the family house and headed to Phoenix to be closer to his lawyer sister and her 3 little brats. As he walked toward his boss's office, Harry wondered why he didn't have the same ambitions as everyone else. He wasn't lazy or stupid. There was just nothing to compel him. He put himself through 6 years of college, 5 different majors, and never graduated. It amazed him that his parents endured his inadequacies for as long as they did. With a sigh, Harry put his self-pity into a mental drawer and closed it as he reached Bill's office. 6 times the size of Harry's cubicle, it was filled with assorted mementos that corporate ladder-climbing managers tended to have. Pictures of a sexy younger wife, 2 smiling girls, Buffalo Bill's paraphernalia, and shelves full of colored binders. Bill sat behind his desk, a still handsome guy in his late 30s with salt and pepper hair and worry lines that came from the rigors of work and family. In his hands was an olive green folder with a very thick file inside. Harry figured that the file belonged to the drop-dead gorgeous blonde who sat in one of the 2 chairs in front of Bill's desk. In her early 30s, she wore a tastefully short black skirt and red blouse. While Harry figured that she wasn't trying to show off her figure, he kind of wished she would. He gently knocked on the door frame and got their attention. "Come in," Bill gestured toward the door. Harry caught the hint and closed it. Bill always liked to discuss everything via closed doors. "Nancy Toof," Bill introduced with a polite grin. "This is Harry Tharton." Nancy and Harry shook hands with equally polite smiles. Bill gestured for him to sit in the other guest chair. Harry readied his blue pen and gray notepad. "Nancy will be taking over your slot," Bill announced with a congratulatory smile. "You'll be replacing Grace on the night shift." Harry's jaw dropped with shocked delight. While it wasn't a big promotion, it was a serious opportunity. If he impressed Bill and his superiors, Harry might end up as management someday. But then he started to worry about Grace. Grace Parcoli was a departmental ace. She had trained Harry and carried him during those first chaotic months on the job. Still, she was 47 and had been working out of her little cubicle for over 20 years. While she lacked Bill's ambition, she deserved to be in his chair or higher. What happened to Grace? Harry asked with a hint of curious concern. She transferred to operations, Bill replied. She just sprang it on me all out of the sudden. And now she's finally management. Harry smiled his first genuine smile of the month. He raised his legal pad and quickly scribbled a reminder to buy Grace something nice once he cashed his next mediocre check. Nancy here is an executive level temp with stellar recommendations, Bill explained. Harry wondered if it was her brains or her legs that got Nancy this far. Bill turned a serious gaze to Nancy. As of today, consider yourself on a 90-day probationary period. Pull it off and you'll become permanent. Nancy nodded as Bill stood up, grinned Harry's way, and held out his right hand. Either way, congratulations, Harry. Thank you, Harry gushed as he rose and shook his boss's hand. I just can't believe this. You've earned it. Bill smiled as he sat back down. Then his phone rang. Bill looked down at the caller ID, frowned, and rested his left hand on the receiver. I've got to take this, Bill said with obvious irritation. Harry, could you give Nancy the quickie tour and then show her to HR? Sure, Harry grinned as he led Nancy out of the room and closed the door behind them. So, Nancy asked, where to first? My cubicle, Harry replied, his face still glowing from the great news. Tomorrow it'll be yours. You never expected to rise up? God, no, Harry chuckled. I'm what you might call semi-skilled labor. Hell, I never even graduated from college. He headed for his cubicle, eager to move into Grace's old spot, which was slightly larger. Better still, his paycheck was about to get much larger. Then why did they hire you? Nancy asked. Oh, Harry shrugged. I killed 31 students at my college. Nancy raised an eyebrow. She skeptically eyed Harry's coffee-stained shirt. Without any formal training? Nope, Harry replied as he stepped into his cubicle and sat behind the desk. Nancy looked unimpressed by the size and blandness of her counterpart's workspace. Still, Harry figured that she'd turn the place into a decked-out, hip spot within a week. How'd you do it? Voices in my head, Harry shrugged. What impressed Meyerkoff Lamb was that I made each murder look like an accident, suicide, or natural causes. After my second year of college, they snatched me off the street. Somehow they figured out my methodology and wanted me for client services. That makes sense, Nancy nodded. How about yourself? Harry asked. Femme fatale, she shrugged. I was crossing the country, sleeping with men, then killing them, slowly. You enjoy it that much, eh? Absolutely, Nancy replied with a brief, malicious gleam in her eye. I had one of those childhoods. How many kills? She looked up at the ceiling and ran a quick mental head count. 46? And as far as I knew, the FBI hadn't figured out that there was a serial killer involved. But you're leaving DNA at every crime scene, right? Wrong, Nancy grinned. You can't have a crime scene without a body. I made sure that each victim was properly disposed of. All the police ever ended up with were missing persons cases. Harry softly applauded. Perhaps Miss Tooth was more than just a pretty face. Can't stand us men, eh? If it weren't for the antipsychotics, Nancy confessed with an evil smile, I'd have lured your boss to a sleazy motel, cuffed him to the bed, tortured him for a few days, and then dissolved him in acid. Yeah, Harry leaned back into his chair. If I had $1 for every time I thought of killing Bill, I'd have my own mansion by now. Is Bill clinical, like us? Nah, Harry replied with a hint of disappointment. He's sane. Believe it or not, he's ex-FSB, trained to infiltrate and assassinate targets on U.S. soil. And he's killed more people than both of us put together. The company recruited him 10 years back. Now he simply coordinates contract hits. What about Grace? A mob wife turned sniper, Harry grinned. After her hubby ended up on death row, she was doing freelance kills to put her 3 boys through college. Oh, Nancy happily sighed. I've always wanted kids. But you're afraid of having boys, eh? Harry knowingly asked. Nancy regarded her co-worker with increased respect and hoped that her monthly antipsychotic injections never stopped working. Otherwise, she'd kill Harry real slow. Not just because he was a filthy man, but also because he could read her so well. So what's next? Nancy asked with a measure of enthusiasm. I'll introduce you to Dr. Vance Burke, our in-house shrink. Nancy made a face. I hate shrinks, Nancy said as she leaned against his cubicle entrance. I've never killed one, though. Well, Harry shrugged, give him a chance. He's not here to cure or redeem you. Dr. Burke's only role is to make sure that you stay within acceptable boundaries. If it weren't for him, I might have gone off my meds years back. It does sound tempting. Not when you weigh your odds of success alone versus being backed by Markov Lamb. They protect us, train us, and have a wonderful benefits package. The only price to pay is that we have to appear to be normal. You can't kill anyone until you've worked your way out of this cubicle. If you're replacing Grace, aren't you afraid of being rusty? You haven't killed anyone since you came in here. Harry looked down at his gut and gave her a knowing grin. It pleased him to be underestimated solely on his appearance. He wouldn't boast that he could bench 340 pounds or easily jog 12 miles. Let's just say that our employee training department doesn't just show you how to do spreadsheets better, Harry grinned. Over my 9 years here, I've learned martial arts, languages, demolitions, toxins, industrial sabotage, and a whole lot of other fun stuff. My advice is to dig into the training programs and score well. You're charismatic enough to be out of here in way less time than I did. If you don't mind my asking, why'd you stay so long? Nancy asked. Harry paused to consider the question. It's kind of hard to stay focused without the voices. They used to guide my every major decision. So will you still have to take your antipsychotics? Afraid so, Harry grumbled. Or else the voices might regain control and I'd go on some unpleasant tangents. Dr. Burke kept assuring me that I'll be happier should I ever get to kill again. Hope he's right. Either way, I'll simply fall back on my training and do whatever the firm asks. And my role is to cover up your kills, right? Nancy asked. Yeah, Harry nodded. Believe me when I tell you that it's utterly vital that you leave nary a trace. We kill anyone from cheating wives to foreign dictators, as long as the price is right. What makes us so successful is that no one, except our clients, knows that this multinational corporation is really a clearinghouse for killers of all stripes. Do I go out with you in the field? Sometimes, Harry replied as he set his notepad down and stood up. Most of the time, you'll just be coordinating my alibis and dealing with any loose ends. Okay, let's be off. To Dr. Burke's, Nancy frowned. Eventually, Harry grinned as he walked past her. First, I want to show you the armory, the chemical weapons lab, and the cafeteria. They make the best omelets money can buy. The end. Thank you. Now, that's just one story in one series, Book of Schemes. If you want to take a look at those or more, talesunlimited.net is the website. Click on any of those and it'll take you straight to Amazon if you wish to purchase. If you wish to follow this page and enjoy the odd sound of my voice, please like and subscribe. Please tell your friends. Please spread the word. This strangeness is not going away anytime soon. Thank you. And again, this is Marcus V. Calvert for Tales Unlimited. See you next time. Off you. Presence.